Shalom, y'all. Grace and blessings from God the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ be unto you. It seems that Facebook is just not going to do it. It's just not going to do it. They keep giving bad stream keys, what it looks like. I know y'all don't necessarily know what that is if y'all don't deal with this type of stuff, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Oh yeah, so Facebook is just not going to be a thing tonight. It seems, even though I'm trying, it just ain't working. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Yeah, it's not even like giving me the option. Really, it's not because I'm gonna get out of that. Yeah, normally it's like a two-step process to get streaming on Facebook. And there's a lot of steps, but there's like a kind of like a last little gate to go through. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's not even giving me an opportunity to go through that first gate. So there's something wrong on that end. Because as I'm about to check and make sure, we're live on YouTube, right? So it's not going to be anything wrong with the equipment or anything like that. Seems to be something wrong with Facebook. They're not letting me on for whatever reason. Right? So yeah. It's not going to be. So we're anything wrong with the equipment. We're on YouTube. All praise to the Most High. That's how we catalog things anyway. Facebook. After me doing this show for like a year or so, maybe even 2 years, Facebook here this year has decided to start getting rid of all the backlog content, right? Starting deleting all the old streams, all the old videos. So that's not where we catalog things anyway. We catalog things on YouTube for the time being. So yeah, on Facebook, it's just not going to be. We're just not going to be on there tonight. Yeah, so we're not even going to be on Facebook. That's unfortunate. It is unfortunate, but I'll let the people over there know. Actually, I might be able to do it like this. Y'all bear with me for 1 minute. All right. Okay. Okay. Right, so they're not letting me do it at all. So it could be something as far as like Facebook Live is down right now. Or it could be that they just won't let me do it. I'm not sure which one it is. I'm not sure which one it is, but they're not letting me on right now. It is what it is. It is what it is. We'll see what we can do about that. It doesn't seem like there is much to do about that. Yeah, I was just kind of scrolling to see if there's anybody live right now. I don't know if there is. Y'all forgive me. I really don't necessarily want to do this. I want to get into the lesson. So I'm just going to say, post something on Facebook. Let the people know that we're not going to be on there to come join us on YouTube. Y'all bear with me for 1 second. And I apologize for my tardiness. I've been dealing with this on the back end. All this technical stuff, trying to get up and going. All right. So is there a way that I can do this? Let's see. Whether I can just share the channel in general, or is that something else? No, I can Share the channel URL. Okay. All right. So, we're already 15 minutes late. That's very unfortunate. But just to briefly mention some things that we will not get into tonight. Hulk Hogan died, which that's not like major world news unless you're like a wrestling fan or whatever. I hope people don't forget the type of person he was just because he died. Because he was not like a good dude, right? Union busting, racist, all sorts of things like that. Just not a swell guy. Political backstage, all that kind of stuff. Liar, just like excessive liar. But he died this past week. What else? So South Park made fun of Trump, making fun of him like he's Saddam Hussein, like kind of portrayed him the same way that they portrayed Saddam back in the day, which is pretty funny. But other than that, that's just about it that I'm aware of. Arizona's still in a drought. They're trying to, find ways around that, circumvent that. But here we are. They're still in a drought over there. I had seen something about that here recently. But what I want to get into tonight is about the history of like Thailand and Cambodia. I don't know how far I'm necessarily going to be able to get as far as the history of the conflict between these two countries, but it is popping off again. It says Thailand and Cambodia clashes kill at least 15 as 130,000 flee border area. All right, so I was reading this and I'm like, why are they in conflict? And it's just a border dispute as far as I can tell. All right, and that probably has to do with like rivers and resources and things like that. Very senseless, if you ask me. Said escalation of military exchanges could lead to state of war. Thailand's acting Prime Minister Phumtham. Y'all forgive me with these names because we're going to be reading a few of these names tonight that I'm going to butcher. Phumtham Wekayakai, I guess, Wechayachai, I'm not quite sure. But that's the acting Prime Minister of Thailand, right? Talking about war. It could lead to war. At least 14 people have been killed in Thailand and another in Cambodia in fighting between Thai and Cambodian troops. Authorities say is more than 130,000 people living along both sides of their border flee the ongoing violence, right? So most of the people are just trying to get away from all this conflict that's going on that border area. Deadly fighting continued for a second day on Friday as both countries traded heavy artillery and rocket fire in the bloodiest military confrontation between the two Southeast Asian neighbors in more than a decade. I'm pretty sure as we read further in the article, it's going to say the worst dispute, or rather the worst clash since the 70s. Maybe I misread that. The situation has intensified and could escalate into a state of war. Acting Thai Prime Minister Phumtham, again, this name, Wechayachai, Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet, that's actually a lot easier to say, said he had backed a ceasefire proposal put forward by his Malaysian counterpart and chairperson of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, Anwar Ibrahim, but added that Thailand withdrew its backing of the plan after initially agreeing to it, right? So you have Malaysia stepping in, trying to ease tensions like, hey, y'all calm this down, but they're not having it. In a Facebook post, Hun Manet described Thailand's decision as regrettable. The key to resolving the current armed conflict between Thailand and Cambodia is the genuine willingness of the Thai side to accept a ceasefire, Hun Manet said. Thailand's foreign ministry said later that it agreed in principle with the Malaysian proposal for a ceasefire and will consider the plan, but that it must be based on appropriate on-the-ground conditions, right? So it seems like, at least to me, and I may be getting this all wrong, but it seems like Cambodia kind of like started it or initiated at least this conflict, because there are more Thai dead than there are Cambodians, right? So that's usually what that means. And now Cambodia is like, hey, accept a ceasefire. That's usually what people do whenever they are the aggressor, right? Like, hey, just accept a ceasefire, right? But the Thai government's like, no, like, like it's got to be like what he said here on appropriate on the ground conditions. Like y'all got to stop being the aggressor here. I could be wrong. It could be the other way around, but I guess we'll see. It must be stated that throughout the day, Cambodian forces have continued their indiscriminate attacks on Thai territory. The ministry said in a post on X, right? So that's pretty much what they're saying. That Cambodia is the aggressor here. The ministry said in a post on X, Cambodia's actions demonstrate a lack of good faith and continue to place civilians in danger. Speaking of Al Jazeera, earlier on Friday, a spokesman for the Thai Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Nikorndej Balankura? Yeah, again, y'all forgive me for the butchering of the names. Said while Thailand insists it has the tools to resolve the issue bilaterally, it has not ruled out future mediation by regional partners. All right, so they said, look, we can come to a conclusion. We can come to peace. It's possible. Our doors have always been open to talks. We are still waiting for positive reactions from the Cambodian side, Nikorndej said. On possible third-party mediation, he added, it's a bit too premature for me right now to say that we are ready for any mediation, but if we are going to talk about anyone to step in and help, countries in, I guess you would still pronounce it the same way, Asian, except with a E, that's the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, would be best suited. A Thai military official said on Friday that attacks have been reported in 12 locations along the disputed border, up from 6 a day earlier, right? So doubling the amount of deaths in 2 days, right? First day was 6 and next were 12, indicating a widening of the fighting, right? So along the border, up and down the border between Thailand and Cambodia. Rear Admiral Surasant Kongsiri, a military spokesperson, said during a news conference that Cambodia had continued to use heavy weapons. Meanwhile, Thailand's Ministry of Public Health reported at least 13 civilians and 1 soldier were killed in Thailand when fighting broke out on Thursday, right? So that's who's mainly getting caught in the crosshairs here. Are the civilians. That's why 130,000 are trying to leave. A local official in Cambodia's Adar Meanchey border province told the Reuters news agency that 1 person was killed and 5 wounded in Thai attacks. So that's on both sides of the border here. That's kind of indiscriminate. It seems like Cambodia is more of the aggressor. Again, that's my opinion based on very little information here. Quoting officials in Cambodia's Preah Vihear province, the Khmer, I don't know how to pronounce that word, the Khmer. We will see that a little later. I don't know how to pronounce it though. Khmer is what I'm going to say. Khmer Times newspaper said about 20,000 residents have evacuated from the country's northern border with Thailand. Meanwhile, more than 138,000 people have been evacuated from Thailand's border regions, the country's health ministry said. Thailand declared martial law on Friday in 8 districts along the border, effective immediately. Right, so they got martial law going on over there. The country has also opened more than 300 evacuation centers, according to officials. Reporting earlier from Surin province near the Cambodian border, Al Jazeera's Tony Chang said the government described the frontier as very long and porous, complicating efforts to track the movement of displaced people. Right, so even if they want to help the people who are, fleeing from this border dispute, they can't really get to them, right? Or it's hard to find them, I should say. It's very hard to see how many people are here in the evacuation center because there are people arriving all the time, right? So there's a big influx of people leaving. Thai authorities said they are meeting the immediate needs of those seeking refuge by providing food, water, and medical care at the temporary shelters. However, local accounts painted a grim picture. Some of the older people that we have talked to said what they have seen in the last 48 hours, the fighting they've seen, has been the fiercest in this disputed area since the late 70s, when the Khmer Rouge had complete control of the other side of the border, Chang reported. The violence centered around a contested section of the Thai-Cambodian border, has prompted calls for calm from regional actors, right? They don't want it to escalate. The people in the surrounding countries don't want this to escalate, right? Like Malaysia, for example. They don't want it to escalate. People are trying to talk down both sides, urging leaders to de-escalate, Chang added. And there's what is that? The Thai residents who fled their homes rest at an evacuation center in the Syrian province in Thailand. All right. That was earlier today. UN to hold emergency meeting. Diplomatic sources told AFP that the UN Security Council will hold an emergency meeting on Friday to discuss the border fighting. On Thursday, Thailand said it scrambled an F-16 fighter jet to bomb targets in Cambodia, whose military said its forces launched long-range rockets towards civilian areas along the Thai border. All right, so they're bringing in jets, they're bringing in rockets, right? That's how far this has escalated. Both countries have blamed each other for starting the fighting, naturally. The U.S., a longtime treaty ally of Thailand, has called for an immediate end to the hostilities. China, a close ally of Cambodia, said it was deeply concerned about the conflict and hoped both countries will properly solve their dispute through dialogue and consultation. Right, so that's certainly one thing that we don't want to see. We don't want to see a proxy war start, right? Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said Beijing is ready to play a constructive role in helping de-escalate tensions. The root cause of this issue lies in the lingering consequences left by Western colonialists in the past, and it now needs to be faced calmly and handled properly. I suppose we'll get into the history a little bit later. As far as like the drawing up of the borderlines is what's caused this, is what China is saying. He said during a meeting with I'm just going to pronounce that Asian Security. This is Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Security General Cao Kim Horn in Beijing, according to a statement from the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The territorial dispute between the two neighbors largely stems from a 1907 map drawn under French colonial rule, which was used to demarcate Cambodia's boundary with Thailand. Cambodia uses the map to support its claim, while Thailand argues that the map is inaccurate. So that's the dispute. Is Cambodia a little bit larger than Thailand likes to claim? That's really what all this stems from, which really is pretty goofy, if we're being honest. It's very materialist and self-interested. But let's look into the history of this region, the history of Thailand and Cambodia. Now, the histories of these two areas are intertwined. So we're really going to talk about Thailand first, because there's a specific thing about Thailand that Cambodia does not share, and other countries in Southeast Asia does not share, and that is it was never properly conquered by European colonialists, right? So, as it says here, this is the history of Thailand from Britannica, right? It used to be Encyclopedia Britannica, but now as y'all know, it's online. It's not an encyclopedia anymore. I use this source fairly regularly when just doing a brief overview of countries specifically, but just of general topics, I suppose. Obviously a secular source. So it said, located in the center of mainland Southeast Asia, Thailand consists of two broad geographic areas, a larger main section in the north and a smaller peninsular extension in the south. Siam, as Thailand was officially called until 1939. So understand that. It was called Siam before. It wasn't always called Thailand. All right. But since it is the land of the Thai, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the history, they named themselves Thailand. Was never brought under European colonial domination. Independent Siam was ruled by an absolute monarchy until a revolution there in 1932. Since that time, Thailand has been a constitutional monarchy. All right, so we're going to jump down to the early Thai, and I do just want to point out they use these when dealing with, I guess, any area. You're gonna have the secular history of this area. You're gonna look at, like, when you see like any type of like early culture, quote unquote. Where is it at? It doesn't even necessarily say it here, does it? No, but we'll see it with Cambodia, as far as when it says something about like thousands and thousands of BC, right? I guess it doesn't say it right here. That's good. But anyway, it said Thai-speaking peoples historically settled along river valleys where they formed small settlements and engaged in subsistence, rice, agriculture, fishery, and gathering of forest products. Early in their history, the Thai domesticated animals. They used water buffalo for plowing and ritual purposes. They raised pigs and fowl for food. It says women were accorded relatively high social status and could inherit property. The Thai followed local religions that involved propitiation of both malevolent and benevolent spirits through offerings and pagan ceremonies. It says special ceremonies, but I'm thinking pagan. And yeah, that's what it is. But notice here it says the basic unit of Thai political organization was the Myang, or group of villages ruled by a Chow, or hereditary chief or lord. During the first millennium CE, the political strengths of the Muang system enabled the Thai to move out of their original homeland until the 8th century. So notice the history that he's talking about, especially concerning the Thai, doesn't really start until like the it said 8th to 11th century, right? This is 700 years after Christ. So let's jump down to the Mon Khmer civilizations. As the Thai moved into mainland Southeast Asia, they came into contact with people speaking Mon Khmer languages who had long inhabited the region. Indian traders traveling to China during the early centuries of the first millennium CE had carried Hindu and Buddhist beliefs and practices to some of those peoples, including the Mon. All right, so the Thai is a people who came later to the region, all right, that was already inhabited by the Mon and the Khmer, like civilizations. Came from the Funan. Does it not talk about the Funan in this? I thought I at least mentioned them briefly. Perhaps I should have went to the Cambodia one first. Y'all forgive me, but I'm still going to keep reading this so we can understand the relationship. Then we'll go back to the Cambodia one. All right. Could have sworn it said something about the Funan in this as well, though. But y'all forgive me. The Mon were the first people in mainland Southeast Asia to adopt Buddhism. They lived in what is now Myanmar. All right. Between the 6th and 9th centuries, the Mon established several small Buddhist kingdoms within the area encompassed by what is now southern Myanmar and central Thailand. Right, so they were Buddhists. They were idolaters. From what are now the towns of Nakhon Pathom and Lop Buri in central Thailand, they extended their power eastward across the Korat Plateau, northward as far as Chiang Mai, and northeastward into what is now Laos. Right, so they kind of expanded. These Mon people kind of expanded once they became Buddhist monarchs, I should say. Those Mon kingdoms are collectively called Dvaravati. The Dvaravati period is noted for its artwork, particularly in Buddhist sculptures and votive images made of terracotta or stucco. As the Thai moved southward into mainland Southeast Asia, they also encountered the Khmer of Cambodia. You see that right there? So you had the Mon, who were around Myanmar until they expanded east and kind of all around. And then you had the Khmer, who were living in Cambodia. Between the 9th and the 13th centuries, Khmer rulers expanded their domains from their capital at Angkor, established an empire that at its height under Jayavarman the Seventh, who reigned from, and again, this is the medieval time period. This is the Middle Ages that we're talking about. All this history of the Thai and the Cambodians didn't really start until the Middle Ages, right? Thereabout. Reigned from 1181 to 1222. That was Jayavarman the Seventh. Extended over approximately half of modern Thailand. Whereas Mon kingdoms were predominantly Buddhist in character, Khmer civilization, which found its supreme expression in the Great Temple Complex at Angkor, was heavily influenced by Hindu ideas and practices, right? So you have the Moabites influencing from like the north. That's not necessarily Buddhist or anything like that, but you have like Ophir, who is the like biblical name for India, right? The children of Joktan, who established Hinduism and Buddhism, influencing these people from the west of them, right? These people are to the east, these Cambodians and these Thai peoples, right? Thai moved in later, but we're talking about the Mon Khmer peoples. The Thai borrowed from the Khmer many elements of Indianized culture, including royal ceremonies, customs followed at court, and especially the Indian epic Ramayana, which influenced not only literature but also classical dance. Even in modern Thai culture, the legacy of Indianized culture of Angkor is still evident, right? So you have, let me get to the Thai here in a second. By the beginning of the 13th century, right, the 1200s, the Thai were starting to place pressure on both the Mon and Khmer empires. The Thai had settled throughout the Chao Phraya Basin, and the Thai ruler was established as far south as the Principality of Nakhon Si Thammarat on the Malay Peninsula. Through Nakhon Si Thammarat, a dynamic new form of Buddhism, Theravada, had entered mainland Southeast Asia from Sri Lanka. Right, so these people who are kind of like caught in the midst of all these like not only political agendas but religious and sociological agendas, right? All these different, they're kind of like easily susceptible to idolatry, right? As Northern Kingdom Israelites were known to be. Let's see. Theravada Buddhism was carried by monks not only to areas under Mon or Khmer rule, but also to the new Thai principalities that were beginning to emerge, Sukhothai and Lana. The first major Thai kingdoms in Thai history were Theravada and Buddhist, were Theravada Buddhist. And it says here the kingdom of Sukhothai. So now we're actually getting into the Thai people, right? They had kind of and I should have shut this phone off. Y'all forgive me. Brother knows that I got the class going on. I don't know what he's doing. All right. It says the kingdom of Sukhothai, situated in the upper Chao Phraya Basin, was founded in the mid-13th century when a local Thai ruler led a revolt against Khmer rule at an outpost of the Khmer Empire. Under its first two rulers, Sukhothai remained only a small local power. However, its third ruler, Ram Kam Haeng, reigned from 1279 to 1298. Right, so now we're actually rolling into like the 1300s. As these Thai people are gaining traction against the Mon and Khmer people. Right, we're moving into the 1300s. Extended Sukhothai power to the south as far as Nakhon Si Thammarat to the west into what is now Myanmar, and to the northeast as far as Luang Prabang is what is now Laos, right? So Laos is rolled into this as well. But Laos does not share a border with Thailand, as far as I know. I could be wrong. Let me just pull this up on a map, or at least it doesn't share the same border that is disputed over currently. Let's see. Y'all forgive me. Laos may share like a small border with a little bit of a border with Thailand. Y'all forgive me though. Let me see. We'll look at this real quick on this Asian map. A little bit, not as much as Cambodia shares though. No, forgive me. I was looking at Burma and Laos, right? I was looking at Myanmar and Laos. It actually shares a big border with Thai. Laos does share a large border with Thailand. All right, Cambodia is down here. I don't know exactly what area is being disputed right now, but obviously, as you can see, Laos, I believe that's the Mekong River that it borders Thailand on. All right. So we may or may not see Laos get rolled into this conflict because Laos is kind of historically in the same boat, I guess I could say, for lack of a better term. Not all these territories were conquered by force. Many became vassal or tributary states to Sukhothai on the basis of kinship, ties, or personal loyalty, and they were linked to it in a loose confederation, right? So some of these states, right, that became this new Thai empire had just associated themselves. They weren't necessarily taken by force, as it says. They were either because there was already Thai people there was enough Thai people there to just say, hey, we're associated with you, or it was, more of a idea of like, we don't want to go to war, so we'll just become tributes, right? Ramkhamhaeng Hang is renowned not only for extending the territory under Sukhothai control, but also for leaving a remarkable stone inscription considered by most scholars to contain the earliest example of writing in any Thai language, written in 1292 and using Khmer script adapted to the sounds and tones of Thai speech. It pictures the Sukhothai kingdom as prosperous, active in trade. And this is a statue right here, by the way. It's a statue of Ramkhamhaeng. I may be mispronouncing that. But let's see. And benevolently governed by a paternal monarch. According to the inscription, the state taxed its citizens modestly, treated all subjects, including non-Thai, equally, and provided justice for all. Okay, sure it did. The Sukhothai period from the mid-13th to the mid-15th century is noted for its sculpture and pottery. Graceful bronze sculptures of the Buddha, especially those showing him in the walking position, are typically of the period. The Celadon ware made at the Sukhothai and nearby Sawan Kalat was exported throughout Southeast Asia, right? So they said that this was a good time period for the Thai. Sukhothai was not the only Thai state in Southeast Asia during this period. In the mid-13th century, in what is today northern Thailand, a Thai ruler, Mangrai, this was from 1219, or rather, I should say 1259 through into 1317. Conquered the ancient Mon kingdom of Harip Punjaya, and built a new capital at Chiang Mai. Under Mangrai and his successors, Lana, with Chiang Mai as its capital, became not only a powerful state, but also a center for the spread of Theravada Buddhism to Thai peoples in what are now northeastern Myanmar, southern China, and northern Laos, under Tilo Karacha. So that was in the 1400s. Lana became famous for its Buddhist scholarship and literature. During the 16th century, Lana was conquered by the Burmese and incorporated into the Burman Empire, where it would remain until the late 18th century. All right, so here's what I wanted to get to, the Ayutthaya period, right? Because this is during the what we know as the colonial age. All right, whereas Sukhothai was an independent kingdom for only about 200 years, its successor, Ayutthaya, situated in the rich rice plains of the Chao Phraya River Basin, about 55 miles north of what is now Bangkok, lasted more than 400 years. All right, during the Ayutthayan period, the Thai consolidated their position as the leading power in what is now central and north-central Thailand, as well as throughout much of the southern peninsular region. Since many of Ayutthaya's neighbors called the country Siam, or a name similar to it, the Thai of Ayutthaya came to be known as the Siamese, right? So that's why I read all of that about the Sukhothai, Sukhothai and the Lana, right? Because that all kind of consolidated into the Ayutthayan period, right? And this is where we see things take a turn for the worse, I guess you could say, for the people of the region. Ayutthaya at first was only a small city kingdom on the northwestern edge of the powerful Khmer Empire. Within less than a century, however, Thai kings succeeded in pushing back the Khmer, and in 1431 they sacked the great Khmer capital of Angkor. Right, so Khmer was like one of the last, or this particular Khmer empire was like one of the last holdouts in the region from complete Thai domination of the area. All right. Wars against neighboring powers continued throughout the Ayutthayan period. In 1438, a greatly weakened Sukhothai was made a province of Ayutthaya. Right, so in 1438 was like the final fall of Sukhothai into Ayutthaya, I guess. In 1431, I guess, is what I'm thinking of as far as the fall of Khmer. Lana, however, remained free of Ayutthayan control, although it was later brought under Burman influence. When the Siamese conquered Angkor, they brought many Khmer captives back to Ayutthaya with them, some of whom had been officials or craftspeople at the Khmer royal court. You see that right there. So when the Siamese took Angkor, they took slaves back with them. All right. From them, Ayutthaya's rulers adopted many of the Hindu ideas and practices that have been followed by the Khmer, including the concept of the ruler as god king. They said, "Oh, okay, you got a god king going. That's what we like. I'm gonna be a god now." Right? It's the ancient Egyptian idea of Pharaoh is a god as well as a king, right? The king acquired power to determine the life and death of all his people. None but members of the royal family might gaze upon his face. He could be addressed only in a special language used exclusively for royalty, while those speaking to the king refer to themselves as the dust beneath your majesty's feet. Right? So definitely some pride going on there with the Thai. The power of the ruler was enhanced not only through symbolic and ideological concepts drawn from Khmer Hindu beliefs about the god king, but also through the centralization of political power. Trilok from 1448 to 1488 created a state in which the ruler stood at the center of a series of concentric circles. As in the Muang system, the outer circles were governed by hereditary lords or Chao. The inner circles, however, were administered by office holders appointed by the king to a limited degree. These operated on bureaucratic rather than hereditary lines, right? So he's basically put his cabinet in, to put it in modern American terms. The kings of Ayutthaya issued formal codes of civil and criminal law based on the ancient Indian body of jurisprudence called the Dharma Shastra. At the same time, a formal and highly complex hierarchical system assigned to each social status a specific number of units called Sak Di Na that determined the rank within society of the person occupying the status, right? So mixing together, this is kind of pretty interesting, kind of mixing together the Indian Hindu caste system with like the modern Chinese like social credit score. It's interesting, to me at least. That determined the rank within society of the person occupying the status. At the bottom of the scale, an enslaved person was worth 5 units. Freemen were ranked at 25 and above, and the heir apparent to the throne was assigned no fewer than 100,000 units. You see that right there? So insane. Designation of giving people a numerical value is pretty wild. In Ayutthayan times, the mass of the people, whether freemen or enslaved people, worked in the fields. And I guess it's not necessarily that crazy. It's just foreign to us. What whether freemen or enslaved people worked in the fields, right? So you could be called free, and you might get more privileges than some people who were enslaved. But guess what? You're still working for the king. Enslaved people included war captives and those held in bondage to pay off debts. Freemen were obliged to work for 6 months each year. It says obliged, right? That word obliged there is doing some heavy lifting. To work for 6 months each year for the local representatives of the king, to pay taxes, and to provide military service as required. An intricate patronage system extended throughout society whereby clients provided their patrons with services in return for their protection. Ayutthaya was an underpopulated society, and the constant need for workers and their scarcity helped protect clients from excessive demands by patrons. If the demands of a patron became too burdensome, a freeman could, as a last resort, move and take up new land, right? Because they were scarcely populated. So he could, or someone could technically leave and go somewhere as long as you weren't a slave, right? They'll chase you down if you're a slave. Then it goes on to Buddhism. Let's skip down. Well, I guess it's just a paragraph. Then we'll get into like colonial periods, right? Says Theravada Buddhism took deep root throughout Siam during Ayutthayan times, alongside the Brahmanism that already characterized court ritual and the earlier religious practices that pervaded all levels of society, right? So they're mixing in these Buddhist ideals as well. The Buddhist monastic establishment, or Sangha, played an important role in society, forming a focal point for village life, providing young males with an education and offering those who elect to remain in the Sangha a channel for upward social mobility, right? So it wasn't all enslaved people. Ayutthaya in the 17th century, according to European visitors, was one of the wealthiest and most cosmopolitan cities in the world, right? So they had used their workers to build up the city, right? Although it lay inland, it was easily accessible to ocean-going vessels traveling up the Chao Phraya River, and it became a thriving international trade emporium. It was during this period that European traders and travelers started going to Siam. The Portuguese reached Siam as early as 1511. Following their conquest of the Sultanate of Malacca on the Malay Peninsula, they were followed in the 17th century by Dutch, English, Spanish, and French traders and missionaries. Ayutthayan kings permitted Chinese, Indian, Persian, and European traders to establish settlements, employed Japanese warriors, and allowed Western missionaries to preach within Ayutthayan domains. In addition to engaging in extensive trade with China, Southeast Asia, and India, the rulers of Ayutthaya sent triennial tribute missions to the Chinese imperial court, established Buddhist missions in Sri Lanka, and sent emissaries abroad as far afield as Europe, right? So they were, the Thai people at this time were as much part of this like colonial trade system as, Europeans were at the time, right? As China was as well. King Narai reigned from 1656 to 1688, initiated a series of diplomatic exchanges between Ayutthaya and the French court at Versailles, and even appointed a Greek adventurer, Constantine Falcon, as his chief minister. Eventually, however, the Europeans became overly zealous in their efforts to convert Buddhist Siamese to Christianity. In 1688, the Siamese expelled the French from Ayutthaya and all but closed their doors to the west for the next 150 years. All right, so then it goes on to say that the primary threat to the Ayutthayan sovereignty was from Burma, right? Burma to the west, Myanmar instead of Europe, right? But let's go ahead and jump over to the Cambodia side and talk about Khmer a little bit. I don't know why specifically on Khmer. I don't think I clicked on Khmer. I was looking at the history of Cambodia. Here we go. So it says it's pretty much all in the same history as the rest of Southeast Asia. And it says it's not known for certain how long people have lived in what is now Cambodia, where they came from, or what languages they spoke before writing was introduced, based on a Sanskrit-style alphabet about the 3rd century CE. So you see that right there. Writing only first appears in the region around the 3rd century CE. He said people. It said plainly and clearly, hey, we don't know where these people come from. All right. And it says carbon-14 dating indicates that people who made and used pottery inhabited Cambodia as early as 4000 BCE, right? So unless that's like some humans during, or I should say before the flood, that does not line up with really anything, all right? Anything biblical, all right? It says those and subsequent findings suggest that those early people, like Cambodians today, were of slight to medium build, constructed their houses on wooden piles, consumed a considerable quantity of fish, and raised pigs and water buffalo, right? So, and then it goes on to say whether the early inhabitants of Cambodia came originally or primarily from the northwest or south is still debated, as are theories about waves of different peoples moving through the region in prehistoric times, right? So they don't know. They don't know where these people came from. Archaeological finds since 1950 suggest that prehistoric mainland Southeast Asia, including Cambodia, had a comparatively sophisticated culture. Those finds include artificial circular earthworks thought to be from the 1st millennium BCE, right? So they say, look, maybe they got here in anywhere from the 900s to 1 BC, right? Anywhere from there, right? That's the 1st millennium BC. Some scholars have even traced the first cultivation of rice and the first casting of bronze to the region, right? So they say 4000 BC, right? That's what they say. But then you get into the actual first known history of the people there. And it said Indian influences were the most important in Cambodia's early history during the 1st centuries CE. You see that right there? So post-biblical times, all right? It said when Chinese and Indian pilgrims and traders stopped along the coast of present-day Cambodia and Vietnam and exchanged silks and metals for spices. Spices, aromatic wood, ivory, and gold. Written sources dating from that period are almost entirely in Chinese and describe a kingdom or group of kingdoms flourishing in southern Cambodia, known to Chinese writers as Funan, right? So these Funan people. And that's what I thought was initially referenced in the history of Thailand that we were just reading. I'm pretty sure it was, even though we didn't see it there. I thought I seen it there when I was first reading. It said, or maybe I seen that in a different article or whatever. Over a period of 300 years, what is this? Why is it doing this? Y'all forgive me. I pressed something. All right. So it said over a period of 300 years between the 3rd and 6th century CE, right? So from the 200s through the 500s, again, the Middle Ages. Its rulers offered gifts from time to time to Chinese emperors. Chinese writers testified to the extent of Indian influence in the kingdom and accounted for it by citing a local story dating from the 6th century of an Indian Brahmin named Kondinya, who went to the area and changed its institutions to follow Indian models. One consequence of that early contact with Indian civilization was the introduction of large-scale irrigation, which allowed people to produce 3 or more crops of rice per year in some districts and brought previously unproductive areas under cultivation. Another was the worship of the Hindu god Shiva. You see that right there. So again, these people were more than willing to accept the idolatry from specifically the children of Joktan, which are India and Nepal, which is where you get your Hinduism, Buddhism, all that kind of stuff. Who was conceptualized as a tutelary ancestor or spirit of the soil, and was often represented by a stone lingam or phallus, right? So it's that same Baal worship, same Egyptian obelisk type, as I said, phallus, right? That's an erection, right? So any kind of erect statue, that's all ancient Egypt. That's all ancient Babylon, right? A third was the relatively peaceful coexistence in Cambodia of Hinduism and Buddhism, which endured for more than 1,000 years, all right? So again, Hinduism, Buddhism, all that same idolatrous practice. The capital city of Funan was probably located at the site of the village of Funan, Angkor, Bore, and Takeo. Province where systematic archaeological digs have been conducted since the mid 1990s, right? So I'm gonna keep jumping around because we're already at 9 o'clock. So it goes on. The history of the Funan people goes, as I said, from the 3rd century to the 6th centuries, but then on into the 7th century as well. They start to kind of come together and organize, as it says here, from the 7th and the 9th centuries into basically the Khmers, right? As we were just reading about in the Thai article, all right? In 790, a young Cambodian prince claiming to be descended from the rulers of Funan was consecrated in eastern Cambodia under the title Jayavarman II. All right. Part of the ceremony involved breaking ties with Java, which probably was a reference not to the island of Java, but to the kingdom of Vijaya on the island of Sumatra, right? So breaking ties with Malaysia and what they had going on down there, not necessarily even Malaysia, but Indonesia, right? The islands of Southeast Asia, right? Because they talk about Sumatra. Sumatra is, I believe it's this island right here. I believe this is Sumatra. Could be mistaken, but it's down there. And I know y'all probably can't even see that. It's down there in Southeast Asia, in the islands down there. All right. So let's get back to it. All right. So let's see. Over the next 10 years, Jayavarman extended his power northward into the Mekong River. The Mekong River Valley. I'm pretty sure the Mekong River is the border between Laos and Thailand. Am I mistaken, or is that correct? I read about it earlier, but I didn't remember where it was. And yeah, I can't even see this on here. Yeah, so that's about right. Yeah, the Mekong River is it flows all the way down into, I know y'all can't see this. I'm trying to help y'all see this, but I might have to move this back here in a minute. All right. So you see down here, the Mekong River actually dumps out into South China Sea. I guess it's still technically down there. And it flows all the way back up into China, into modern day China. Flows down to become the border between Myanmar and Laos, Thailand, Laos, all the way down through Cambodia. All right, so let me move this back. All right, let's go ahead and get out of that. So Jayavarman extended the territory up to the Mekong. Into the Mekong River Valley in 802. He was reconsecrated as Chakravartin, the ancient Indian concept of world ruler. Right, so he called himself the ruler of the world in northwestern Cambodia. The capital seems to have been located in the Kulin Hills, north of the present-day provincial capital of Siem Reap, where he died in 835. Despite the high status accorded him by subsequent Angkorian kings, Jayavarman II seems to have left no inscriptions of his own, and the monuments that can be dated to his reign were small and hastily built. Right, so he expanded the empire, but didn't necessarily leave grand monuments. Jayavarman's real accomplishment was less tangible and lasted longer, for he appears to have established what came to be called Kambuja Desa, a confident, self-aware kingdom that superseded and came to control a range of smaller states. Right, so just based on the history of this region, it seems like the people who got there probably got there around the turn of, around the days of Christ and the apostles, right? They probably got there around that time, maybe a little earlier, But it seems like they got there around that time, started collecting as the Funan shortly afterward, and that's when China and India started trading with them. And then after that, they became this people as far as the Khmer, right? You also had the Mon, and then the Thai came in later and kind of took over everybody, right? Let's see. He was Cambodia's first nationally oriented king, right? This is Jayavarman II. It is not known whether smaller states were forced into submission or joined of their own volition. Despite the grandeur of Angkorian temples that were built over the next 4 centuries, Jayavarman II's successors were often powerless or constrained by opposing forces. Revolts and usurpations were frequent, as were foreign invasions. Rulers were the object of rival claims by family members, priests, generals, and bureaucrats. Some kings, especially usurpers, had more freedom of action than others, right? So, constant and consistent revolts. If you know anything about the history of the Northern Kingdom, that was always the story. All right, constant and consistent revolts. All right, and even like I'll keep reading, but we're also going to look at like some of these structures and as it says, temples that were built. It says some kings, especially usurpers, had more freedom of action than others. Those who ruled in periods of peace were also in a better position to undertake building programs and public works. Like their counterparts in medieval Europe, Cambodian kings were far removed from ordinary people. The king was perceived primarily in religious terms, and he ensured the fertility of the soul and the well-being of the kingdom through the rituals he performed. You see it right there. And again, the medieval kings, if you know anything about true history, right, history of this truth, right, you know that the history of the medieval European days, ever since the fall of Rome, was that Israelites took over Europe. Throughout the Middle Ages, the Inquisitions kind of pushed them out, right? And you see the same thing happening all over the world, right? Where the Northern Kingdom was, they were doing the same thing as far as building their kingdoms, building their empires throughout the Middle Ages. All right, it was primarily the Southern Kingdom in Europe, right? But it was still a mix there. But it was Israelites though, right? All over the world during the Middle Ages, building their kingdoms, building their empires, and you see that with the prophecy and Revelation. As far as a balance, right? I believe it's the third horse in Revelation 6 is a balance, right? Carries a balance in his hand. I may be wrong, but I'm gonna get that scripture here in a second. All right, let's go ahead and look at that now, because the Bible describes what would happen, right, after during Christ's days, after Christ's days. Let me get this here in Revelation chapter 6. Because it is all building back to, modern times. I do want to get to more modern stuff, but I just want to point out and kind of lay the case that these people over there in Southeast Asia, a lot of them are Israelites. There's also some heathen that's always had kind of not only influence on these people, but also kind of take over them territorially, as we've seen with the Thai, right? That's why it's called Thailand. Right, those people who never were subjected to the curses, but rather subjected the people around them to the curses. Right, so in Revelation chapter 6, you have the first horse, right, a white horse. He that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. That was Alexander the Great. He went forth conquering and to conquer. This was actually before Christ's time, right? But the seals represent everything from this like turning point in history, which was Alexander, the son of Philip the Macedonian, is how the scripture referred to him, right? Just conquering everything, right? Kind of changed everything as far as you read Maccabees, the first chapter, and it said evils were multiplied in the earth after his days, right? Zechariah prophesied that he would come using similar verbiage, all right? Let me go ahead and get that real quick about Zechariah, and then I'll show you the fulfillment of that prophecy. By the time you get to Revelation, John is kind of reiterating it as a turning point in history at that point, because it had already happened. All right. In the book of Zechariah, I just want to show, first of all, that when it's talking about these horses in Revelation chapter 6, it's talking about spirits. He's not talking about like actual horses or actual horsemen. They're spirits. All right. Is it Zechariah 6? I think it is. Could be Zechariah. Something else. But no, here we go. And in Zechariah chapter 6, he said, I turned and lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, there came 4 chariots out from between 2 mountains, and the mountains were mountains of brass. The first chariot were red horses, and the second chariot black horses. The third chariot white horses, and the fourth chariot grizzled and bay horses. Then I answered and said unto the angel that talked with me, what are these, my Lord? Right? It's very similar to the horses that are in Revelation. And the angel answered and said unto me, these are the 4 spirits of the heavens, which go forth from standing before the Lord of all the earth. All right. So then it goes on to say about the direction of the horses. All right. But let's, I just wanted to show that these are the 4 spirits of the heavens, right? These are 4 spirits. These aren't like literal horses and horsemen that it's talking about in Revelation. These are spirits. All right. So in Zechariah 1, it says, this is verse 7 in Zechariah 1, upon the 24th day of the 11th month, which is the month Sabbath, in the 2nd year of Darius, came the word of the Lord unto Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, the son of Iddo, the prophet, saying, I saw by night, and behold, a man riding upon a red horse, and he stood among the myrtle trees that were in the bottom, and behind him were their red horses, and speckled and white. Then said I, O my Lord, what are these? The angel talked with me and said unto me, I will show thee what these be. The man that stood among the myrtle trees answered and said, these are they whom the Lord has sent to walk to and fro through the earth. You see that right there. So these spirits would go throughout the earth. And they answered the angel of the Lord that stood among the myrtle trees and said, we have walked to and fro through the earth, and behold, all the earth sit still and is at rest, right? So they said, it's time, right? It's time that we move. But anyway, the white horse, him that sat on a bow, him that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. All right? So let me get that in 1 Maccabees 1:1. I just want to show you the fulfillment of this, so then we can actually get to the point of what happened during the Middle Ages with the Israelites coming into rulership. All right. And in 1 Maccabees 1:1, and it came to pass that Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, and when you read, when you connect the dots as far as like precept upon precept, Haman, the son of Ammedatha, the Agagite that you read about during, or I should say that you read about in the book of Esther, who was plotting to kill the Israelites, he was a Macedonian. All right, read that in the rest of Esther. The Greeks got rid of that chapter, all right, as far as out of the Hebrew. But it is in the Greek. It's in the Apocrypha, all right. Haman, the Agagite, which is an Edomite, was Macedonian, right? Specifically an Amalekite, right? So that's what Alexander is as well. He's of the same people as Haman, right? He's an Edomite. He's a Amalekite, all right? Who came out of the land of Kittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece, right? So I don't know specifically the plan that Haman had and how he connects to Alexander. Maybe there's no connection at all. But it seems that Haman's ultimate plan was to usurp the kingdom from the Persians and Medes. That didn't work out. Later down the line, Alexander did that by force, right? He was the first of the Greeks to have rulership. But as the scripture said, conquering and to conquer, right? And made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth, right? He conquered and conquered and conquered. That's all he did. And went through to the ends of the earth, right? He made it all the way to India and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. You see that right there. So he got very proud of what he had done. He conquered everything that he touched, basically. He was a mighty man in battle. And he gathered a mighty strong host, and he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him, right? Conquering and to conquer. And after these things he fell sick and perceived that he should die, wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive, right? So I'm not necessarily going to get into the Greek history, but I just wanted to point out this is that spirit that was on Alexander, was that conquering and to conquer spirit, that white horse, right? So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died, and his servants bare rule everyone in his place. And I want to get to verse 9. It says, and after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth, right? So in the time period of Alexander, he was just going to war, conquering and conquering, right? He didn't really rule, right? He never really ruled over anything because he was always moving to the next thing that he could conquer and put in his subjection, right? He never really implemented any policies. He never really had time to. I think he died when he was like 32 or something. Just after conquering for many years, right? But when his successors took over and their children took over, the policies that they implemented were evil and wicked as hell, according to the Bible. All right? So, going back to Revelation 6. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer, right? Conquered and conquered and conquered. When he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, come and see. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword, meaning a great military. All right, so now we're moving on from the Greek time period that we're conquering and conquering from Alexander, right? And then you get to the Roman time period who had the great military. This wasn't like in the plans for tonight. I'm just going how the Spirit moved me. I believe in 1 Maccabees 8, it talks about the Romans and how they had a great military. All right, because this is actually before the Romans really got to the heights that they would get to, right? It's in between the Maccabean time period and Christ's time period where the Romans really took over militarily. No, it goes on. I'll just read 1 and 2. I'll probably read more actually because it actually talks about it talks about their wars. But this is even before they reached their great military heights that they would reach. Now Judas had heard of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men, and such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them. Right, that was their policy. Right, it wasn't necessarily the same as the Greeks of just forcing and implementing the great evils throughout the earth. It was more assimilation. Right, they would take over the region and then assimilate the population into their army and make them Romans. Right, it wasn't necessarily as forceful as the Greeks, even though they had the might to do so. And make a league of amity with all that came unto them, and that they were men of great valor. It was told him also of their wars and noble acts which they had done among the Galatians, and how they had conquered them and brought them under tribute. You see that right there? So you still have a conquering element, but that's not solely what it's about. It's more about the great sword, right? A great sword, as I said, or a great military, all right? It said that they should kill one another, all right? And what they had done in the country of Spain for the winning of the mines of silver and gold, which is there, right? I believe that was part of the Punic Wars. I may be mistaken. And that by their policy and patience, they had conquered all the place, though it were very far from them. And the kings also that came against them from the uttermost part of the earth, till they had discomfited them and given them a great overthrow, so that the rest did give them tribute every year, right? So you have all these different men killing each other, right? Taking peace from the earth, right? Rome had a great sword, great military, all right? Beside this, how they had discomfited in battle Philip and Perseus, king of the Kittims. So that would be, the Kittims would be the Etruscans, right? The original inhabitants of Italy, with others that lifted up themselves against them and had overcome them. How also Antiochus, the great king of Asia, that came against them in battle, having 120 elephants with horsemen and chariots, and a very great army, was discomfited by them. You see that right there? So even a very great army, right, that Antiochus had. Not sure which Antiochus he's talking about here. Maybe it's Antiochus the fourth, maybe it's Antiochus the third. But regardless, even a very great army, as the scriptures say that Antiochus had, was not enough to overcome the Roman army because, again, a great sword was given unto them, that spirit of the red horse. All right. And how they took him alive and covenanted that he and such reigned after him should pay a great tribute and give hostages, and that which was agreed upon. All right. So this is the red sword, right? Yes. Yeah, it's the red sword. Again, the color of Rome is what? Red. So that's the spirit that was on them. Let's see. And the country of India and Media and Lydia, and of the goodliest countries which they took of him and gave to King Eumenes. Moreover, how the Grecians had determined to come and destroy them. So again, you have all these different stories of men rising up, trying to kill each other, right? But you have Rome with their great sword overcoming those people. And that they, having knowledge thereof, sent against them a certain captain, and fighting with them, slew many of them, and carried away captives, their wives and their children, and spoiled them, and took possession of their lands, and pulled down their strongholds, and brought them to be their servants unto this day. Right? So Rome took over Greece. It was told him besides how they destroyed and brought under their dominion all other kingdoms and isles that at any time resisted them. You see it right there. So that was the spirit that was on Rome. They had a great sword. Right, so that would be that second seal. That second seal, that that second spirit. All right. And here's the thing, because it said that's the third seal is famine. That's what it says here. But let's actually read it. All right. This is the heading on Bible Hub, right? Because they put headings with each like stanza or whatever that they designate as a stanza. It says, and when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand, right? So with these first two seals, you had the conquering of the Edomite Alexander, right? And then the seal after that came the Romans, right? Another Edomite empire, right? So the third seal is that of balances, all right? And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine, all right? So does that sound like famine? If you can get a measure of wheat for just a penny, if you can get 3 measures of barley for a penny, does that sound like a famine? That sounds like plenteous. You see what I'm saying? And it also said, hurt not the oil and the wine. All right? And Zechariah actually talks about the oil. Do I actually want to get into this? I'll get into it. As far as Zechariah 4, I'm not necessarily going to break it down completely, but the oil and wine represent holiness. They represent the children of Israel, all right? The Israelites coming back into power, all right? Let's see. So jumping down to verse 11 here, Zechariah 4, then answered I and said unto him, what are these 2 olive trees upon the right side of the candlestick and upon the left side thereof? So who are these 2 olive trees, or I should say, what are these 2 olive trees that are standing next to the menorah? What are these 2 olive trees next to the menorah? And I answered again and said unto him, what be these 2 olive branches which through the 2 golden pipes empty the golden oil out of themselves? Right, so the oil. Because he talks about the oil here. And he answered and said to me, knowest thou not what these be? And I said, no, my Lord. Then said he, these are the 2 anointed ones that stand by the Lord of the whole earth. Right? These 2 anointed ones, the 2 servants, the 2 olive branches, the 2 olive trees. Right? Because notice it said olive trees first. Then it said branches. And it said they got the golden oil. Right? Let's deal with these olive trees real quick. And then we're going to get back on track. Lord's will. I'm probably just going to skip right to colonial times in Cambodia, because we know that the Thai took over the Mon and the Khmer, right? We know that much. So Jeremiah, let's talk about these olive trees real quick. Because you got to go here a little, there a little, get the understanding. As I'm showing with Revelation 6, you got to know the rest of the Bible as well before you get there. And even with Zechariah the prophet, you got to know other prophets as well before you get to Zechariah. Zechariah can get deep. He can get deep, let me just tell you. In Jeremiah 11 and 16, the Lord called thy name a green olive tree, fair and of goodly fruit, with the noise of a great tumult. He hath kindled fire upon it, and the branches of it are broken. Right? So what is this olive tree he's talking about? For the Lord of hosts that planted thee hath pronounced evil against thee for the evil of the house of Israel and of the house of Judah, which they have done against themselves to provoke me to anger and offering incense unto Baal. Right? So Israel was an olive tree, was considered an olive tree before the Lord. Right? The branches were broken off that were wicked. All right? That would be Israel and Judah. That's the two olive trees. All right? It was one, but it got broken into two. All right. So that's the oil, and the wine was in the oil that they pour out of themselves. I suppose is the wisdom, and the wine would be like the judgment of Almighty God. All right. So, but the point is that third seal is the balances. Right. God had to balance things out. He said, I can't have these two Edomite empires ruling the earth and then jump straight to the Edomite colonial empires. He said that's too much. That's too much oppression. God is more merciful to his people than that. He said, I'm going to balance things out. I'm going to bring the Israelites back into power during the Middle Ages. All right? And of course, this was prophecy in the Old Testament as well that God would do this. All right? Specifically concerning Edom, but also just generally, all right, concerning his people. All right? Concerning the Israelites. In Malachi 1, and you see here how, really Malachi 1 in the first few verses here is about how God loves Jacob. He talks about how he hates Esau as well, but it's really about how he loves Jacob. All right? In Malachi 1, starting with 1, the burden of the word of the Lord to Israel by Malachi, right? So that's what it's about. It's about the Israelites. All right? I have loved you, saith the Lord. Yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? Right? Because Malachi lived during the time of the Persians. The Israelites at that time still in captivity. Right? They're freer to Rome, as far as Rome as in Roam, not to Rome as in the country, as in the empire, right? The city. But they're free to go where they please, so to speak. Freer than they were in Babylon, but they're still subject to tribute, right? They're still subject to tribute. They still got to pay taxes to the Persians, right? They still got overseers who are the Persians, right? So they're not feeling the love of God. Yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? Yet I love Jacob, right? So God said, look, read the history. Read your history. He said, I love Jacob. I chose Jacob over Esau. And I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. You see that right there. So God said, look, I laid his mountains and his heritage waste. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down. And they shall call them the borders of wickedness, the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. Right? So I read that to say this, all right? When God said he laid his mountains and his heritage waste, Esau at that time was never wasted. All right, straight up out of the house of his father Isaac, he and Esau and his children, or at least his very near descendants, went and took Mount Seir from the Horites. Right? They didn't go through a period of captivity the way that the Israelites did. All right? And then they kept Mount Seir until some of them branched out and went to go into Europe. All right? They were never laid waste by anyone up until the Roman Empire fell. in its traditional sense, right? In its Edomite sense, it fell in 193 A.D. Septimius Severus was the first non-Edomite emperor in Rome, all right? And from there, you had a changing of the guard, so to speak, with Israelite kingdoms. You had a changing of the balances. You had a spirit of balances. The black horse had a spirit. You had a spirit of balances throughout the earth, where the Israelites came back into rulership. And that's what God is saying here. He's like, look, I love Jacob. I got to show my love to Jacob. I can't just let him be oppressed forever. I got to give him another chance, right? And what happened throughout the Middle Ages? The Israelites continued in wickedness. The Israelites continued in paganism, as we're reading about the Cambodians and the people that the Thai ruled over, right? The Mon Khmer people, all right? Peoples, I should say, all right? So from there, let's actually look at some of these Cambodian pyramids, temples, and things like that, because they're the exact same thing as the pyramids and temples that are over here in the West. All right, as far as that the so-called Native Americans built. So this is, let me pull this over. Not this. Let me get out of that. I think. We might come back to it, but I doubt it. Let me pull this over here so y'all can see this. The Cambodian temples and pyramids and things like that. You got all these different names. Let me show this comparison here between this temple in Cambodia and this temple in Guatemala. All right. One's in Mesoamerica, one's all the way across the world. These people did not have communication with each other. They just knew and understood this is what the forefathers did as far as build these type of buildings. All right, they're not exactly the same, but they're very similar. All right. Where is this one that actually showed like the Reddit post showing the similarities? Here we go. Right, so you have like Mexico and some of these places. What are these places? It's like Cambodia and maybe Laos is this other one. Maybe Thailand. But just showing the similarities between these building structures. All right. I guess this is not necessarily similar to that, other than like the base of it. But a lot of these are very similar. All right. Especially this one, Bakse Shamrong. Let's go back to, the Bakse temple. Very similar, right? Very similar to the stuff that you see over in Mesoamerica. All these are similar structures, right? A pyramid type structure. Not all of them necessarily are pyramids, but still got that type structure, all right? So let's see if it was custom for the Israelites to build pyramids, all right, when they built monuments. In First Maccabees 13, what was it, like 37? No, where is it at? Where is it at when, here we go, 27. So this is Simon Thassi, the son of Mattathias, right? The first of the Hasmonean high priest. Well, I guess Jonathan could have been high priest as well. Maybe it was Judas initially and then Jonathan, but regardless, his lineage became the Hasmonean high priest. Simon also built a monument upon the sepulchre of his father and his brethren and raised it aloft to the site with hewn stone behind and before. Moreover, he set up 7 pyramids, one against another, for his father and his mother and his 4 brethren. You see that right there? So Simon, who was a Levite, built pyramids, all right? Because that's what Israelites did. That was something that they liked doing. When they built monuments, they built pyramids, all right? And in these he made cunning devices, about the which he set great pillars, and upon the pillars he made all their armor for perpetual memory, and by the armor ships carved, that they might be seen of all that sail on the sea, right? So that's what he built at Modin, as I said. So we do have precedent in the Bible of Israelites building pyramids, right? That's what Israelites did. That's why they're similar in Mesoamerica and in Mexico and in Central America as it is in Southeast Asia, all right? So from there, I guess we can get out of this as well. Let's get to colonial time periods, because we had it had referenced that in the history of Thailand, but I want to get to it here in the Cambodian history. All right. So from their French rule, all right, French control over Cambodia was an offshoot of French involvement in the neighboring provinces of Vietnam. All right, so I believe the French called it Indochina, and they just kind of took over the whole region. All right. France's decision to advance into Cambodia came only when it feared that British and Siamese expansion might threaten its access to the largely unmapped Mekong River. All right, so they gotta have access to the Mekong River. That's why they took it, which it assumed incorrectly could provide access to central China, right? Because it doesn't go up that far, right? In 1863, French naval officers from Vietnam persuaded Norodom to sign a treaty that gave France control of Cambodia's foreign affairs. The effect of the treaty was to weaken Siamese protection. A French admiral participated in Norodom's coronation with Siamese acquiescence in 1864. Right, so this is well into the 19th century. Right. For the next 15 years or so, the French were not especially demanding, and Norodom benefited from French military help in putting down a series of rebellions, right? So like a little scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. Let's see. By the late 1870s, however, French officials in Cambodia were pressing for greater control over internal affairs. Imagine that. All right, French colonizers and French colonists pressing for more control over what goes on in the country. It's not like they're still doing that today, not by any means. Shocked by what they regarded as the ineptitude and barbarity of Norodom's court and eager to turn a profit in Cambodia, they sought to introduce fiscal and judicial reforms. In doing that, the French knew that Norodom's half-brother, Siselwath, who had ambitions for the throne, would cooperate with them, right? It's the same type of system that CIA do, right? If the guy in charge is not doing what we want him to do, then we'll take him out and replace him with someone who will, right? It's very very old trick in the book, right? Edomites, and I should just generally say the devil does not have new tricks, right? He's an old dog. He does not have new tricks. He does the same thing over and over again, all right? Let's see. Norodom, however, resisted the reforms, which he correctly perceived as infringements on his power. Exasperated by his the Britannica, they use these big words. I've tripped up over big words that they use. Intransigence. What is intransigence or intransigence? Y'all forgive me. I know I'm getting on some detours, and we've been going at it for a while, but I'm going to wrap it up pretty soon. I just wanted to talk about how the area was colonized. Refusal to change one's views or to agree about something. Yeah, so intransigence. Learn a new word every day, right? The French in 1884 forced him at gunpoint to sign a document that virtually transformed Cambodia into a colony. You see right there? They forced him at gunpoint to sign a document. At that point, why do you even need a document, right? If you're just going to force somebody at gunpoint to do something, then why are you going to need a document? Why you got to have a document to do it? Soon thereafter, provincial officials, feeling threatened, raised guerrilla armies to confront the French. The rebellion, which lasted until mid-1886, was the only anti-French movement in the kingdom until after World War II. You see it right there. The French succeeded in suppressing it after agreeing to some concessions to the king, but Norodom's apparent victory was hollow. What the French had been unable to achieve by the Convention of 1884, they proceeded to gain through piecemeal action. As Norodom's health declined, and as senior Cambodian officials came to see their interests increasingly linked with French power, the way was open for greater French control. In 1897, the French representative in Phnom Penh, assumed executive authority, reducing the king's power to a minimum. Right, king in name only at that point. Norodom died embittered and overtaken by events in 1904. All right. So you had Ammon, the Japanese came in and tried to take over World War II. So you still had French Indochina going on into the 1940s. All right. And I'm kind of just getting into this 1950. Wow, they got independence, 1954? Yeah. Yeah, in 1954. Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. But anyway, let's go ahead and get out of this, get back to the scriptures. Deuteronomy 28. We see how everybody became, whether by the Thai, in like medieval times, the turn of the colonial time period, right? We didn't even necessarily read about that. The fourth seal. The fourth seal was that colonial time period, was death, and I have to get back to that. I'll read Deuteronomy 28 though. Well, I will do that. But let me go ahead and get that back as far as Revelation 6. Revelation 6 and these six seals, or rather the seven seals, we're in the sixth seal now, waiting for that seventh. It all just describes history. It's not like some future events as far as these horses, right? They're not literal horses. They're not literal horsemen. They're not describing future events in most part. A lot of it's just history and how it's unfolded. But the fourth seal, and when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And the power given unto them, and power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. All right? So let's talk about Edomites coming back in power, but also just generally, right? Death and hell in this context. Let's get that real quick, because we're not coming back to Revelation 6. Hell in this context is the same as in Isaiah 5, because you already have death, right? So it ain't talking about the grave, which is another definition for hell. It's talking about what it's talking about here in Isaiah 5, the shadow of death, which is not death, but it's similar to it. Isaiah 5 and starting with, 13, yes. Therefore my people are gone into captivity, because they have no knowledge, and their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up with thirst. Right? He said, my people have been taken captive because they don't have knowledge. Right? Therefore hell hath enlarged herself. Right? So captivity is hell. All right? And open her mouth without measure, and their glory, and their multitude, and their pomp, and he that rejoiceth shall descend into it. Right? Because the mentality, the spirit of the people, the, dare I say, pride of the people has descended into the grave, right? They have the shadow of the grave, right? The shadow of death. That's what hell is. Captivity is hell, all right? So in the context of Revelation 6, when it says death, right, that's pretty self-explanatory. But then hell, right, captivity followed with this fourth spirit that was described in Revelation 6, right? So that's what happened with you initially there in Southeast Asia. You had the Thai, right? You had the Thai taking over the Mon and the Khmer civilizations, who were more than likely Israelites. And I don't know if the Thai were, probably not, just because it seemed like they never went under the curses. So they could have been one of the children of Joktan, they could have been Moab. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to do more research there. But then you also had the French Edomites come in, take over what they called French Indochina, right? Which is there in Southeast Asia, including Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. All right. So in Deuteronomy 28, it talks about the curses of disobedience. All right. I'm going to get to the point. What was it, 35, 37? it is 36, excuse me. The Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. Right? So that's what happened with, I already forget the brother's name from the article because it's getting pretty late. But that the French basically did not forcefully take his kingdom from him, but might as well have put him at gunpoint, made him sign a document, right? The king of Cambodia at the time, right? But also before that, you had the kings that were ruling the Mon and Khmer civilization. Some of them were taken captive by the Thai, right? So you see, and also part of the curse is also serving other gods, right? So you had Israelites who did that willingly, served other gods, but then you also had once these curses come into effect, there is no, you don't have a choice in the matter, right? You have to serve their idol gods, right? So it's kind of like a parent catching their children smoking, so they say, here, have a whole carton of cigarettes, right? That's what God did to his people concerning idolatry. Oh, you want to serve gods? You're going to be forced to serve the heathens' gods. How about that? And you see that in Jeremiah concerning God's people. In Jeremiah 2, who willingly turned to idolatry, right? And that's what we're talking about, Hinduism, Buddhism. In Jeremiah 2, starting with 11, it says, hath a nation changed their gods, which are yet no gods? But my people have changed their glory for that which does not profit, right? So you look at like the people in India, right? Some are Israelites, but mostly, I don't even know if I necessarily want to say mostly because there's a lot of people there. But the people of India generally are actually the children of Ophir, all right? They're the children of Joktan, right? The Hebrews who weren't chosen, all right? The children of Joktan over there. They still have Hinduism, which they've always had. They haven't changed their gods. They've always had Hinduism, and they still have it, right? So that's just an example of nations don't change their gods. Even with so-called white people, right, Edomites. White people became Christians at the turn of the millennium there with the BC to AD. But when you look at Christian culture, it's the same as pagan culture. It's truly just been adopted from pagan culture, from Roman culture, right? Even take the days, the names of the days of the week, the names of the months. It's still Roman, all right? It's not Christian, it's Roman, all right? It's pagan Roman, right? You have Sunday, Moon Day, Tyr is a Norse god, and as far as English is concerned, right? Wednesday is Odin's day. Thursday is Thor's day. Friday is Freya's day, and Saturday is Saturn's day, right? Whereas you read the Bible, it just says the first day through the Sabbath, right? But my point is that the Israelites are the ones who changed their gods willingly, right? So you had those Mon and Khmer civilizations who it's not really known where they came from or who they are, but we do know that they started practicing Hinduism and Buddhism from when China and India brought it to them. All right, I guess more specifically India brought those religions, but China was also Buddhist. All right. So from there, I could read. I'm gonna read on down through verse 14. Be astonished, O ye heavens, at this, and be horribly afraid, and be very desolate, saith the Lord. For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water. Right? There's no wisdom in idolatry. There's no wisdom in Hinduism. There's no wisdom in Buddhism. None of that. Or you get down into Malaysia, they serve Allah and Islam. There's no wisdom in that either. Is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? Again, Deuteronomy 28. From there, let me go ahead and get this in Matthew 24. Concerning what's happening now, all right? Whether this is like heathens fighting Israelites or whether it's Israelites fighting Israelites, it's kind of irrelevant when it comes to the prophecy, all right? In Matthew 24, and obviously everywhere you go there's going to be Israelites, so that's kind of the point that I'm making. But specifically in Southeast Asia, there's a lot of Israelites because there's like most of the world's population is actually over there in Asia. When you get into like India and South China and Southeast Asia, that's where most of the world's population is. So here in Matthew 24 and verse 6, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. You remember what they said as far as the article? I know that was a while ago, but you remember what they said as far as like this could start a war. All right? See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. All right? So the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, right? Thailand against Cambodia. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All right, we see those things going on every day as well. Just a few years ago, 5 years ago, we had that pestilence, right? The CV-19. And you see earthquakes going on like every day now in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. That's what we're in right now. We're in the beginning of sorrows. The end is not yet. We're in the beginning of the end. So with that, I'm going to close out with Matthew 26. Hope y'all learned something. This was a bit much, just talking on the history of two countries. Even though they're intertwined, it was still a bit much. It also didn't help that I got started late. Doggone Facebook, not wanting to work. Maybe that's an internal issue. Maybe that's them keeping me out type thing. I'll look into it though. Now when Jesus was in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, there came unto him a woman having an alabaster box of very precious ointment and poured it on his head as he sat at meat. But when his disciples saw it, they had indignation, saying, to what purpose is this waste? For this ointment might have been sold for much and given to the poor. When Jesus understood it, he said unto them, Why trouble ye the woman? For she hath wrought a good work upon me. For ye have the poor always with you, but me ye have not always. For in that she hath poured this ointment on my body, she did it for my burial. Verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached to the whole world, there shall also this that this woman hath done be told for a memorial of her. So with that, I'm going to say shalom. Let God be magnified, and happy Sabbath.